Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Wednesday webinar series on food safety compliance. My name is Maureen. I do the PR and marketing for the MEP Center here at the University of Utah. And today we have a special guest with us. Her name is Kim Sabatka. She's the Director of Business Development at ASI Food Safety in Missouri. So a little bit about Kim. She is a registered safe quality food or SQF system implementation professional. She's successfully guided over 230 facilities to SQF certification. And as mentioned, she's a director of business development for ASI Foods in St. Louis, Missouri, and she's one of our MEP Center third-party providers for this service. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the time over to Kim to talk about food safety compliance.
Thank you, Maureen. As stated, my name is Kim with ASI Food Safety, and I'm going to be presenting a webinar to you today on food safety compliance. So, an overview of our time, and our time is limited today, so I'm going to go through the agenda relatively quickly. We're going to discuss industry acronyms. A lot of people struggle with that, and there are many, many to learn. And once you know the acronyms, everything makes a little bit more sense. I'm going to discuss the foundation for all food safety audits, to include GMP audits, FDA audits, which is part of FSMA, GFSI audits, and then we'll have a question and answer session at the end. If you have a question, please type it in the chat box and we will answer all of them at the end, and that way everybody gets the answer. So let's start with industry acronyms. I haven't gone through these in any type of order, but I just listed the ones that are most commonly used in the food industry. And the first one is HACCP. And some people chop that and don't say it correctly, but if you're not going to say the entire word, which the entire sentence, it's Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point. It's shortened to HACCP for ease because it would get quite lengthy talking about it if you had to say that out every time. HACCP is the foundation for all food safety plans, whether it's for a GMP level, FDA level, or global level. We're going to talk a little bit more about the HACCP and how that relates shortly. The next acronym that's used in the industry is GMP, and that stands for Good Manufacturing Practices. So whether you process food, package food, or distribute food, there is an expectation both from the FDA and third-party auditors that you're going to be following good manufacturing practices. And those would include things like your record keeping, sanitation of the building, complaint handling, and that type of stuff. Another acronym that most of you might have heard of is the FDA. That stands for the Food and Drug Administration. In the United States, the FDA is the U.S. regulatory body that oversees the food and drug that's manufactured or brought into the United States from other countries. And part of the FDA acronym series that you're going to hear me talk about is FSMA. And what FSMA stands for is the Food Safety Modernization Act. A lot of you may have already heard of this and been told that the FDA is going to come around and start doing inspections as a result of the FSMA Act that was passed and signed back in 2011. FSMA requirements are very similar to third-party GMP requirements, and we'll get into that a little bit later. So to sum it up, HACCP, GMP, FDA, and FSMA are used regardless of what level of compliance that you're looking for. The next page also has industry acronyms. When a customer of yours tells you that they want you to get GFSI certified, what they're talking about is the Global Food Safety Initiative. The Global Food Safety Initiative benchmarks a certain set of criteria by auditing standard companies that say, okay, you're going to have these requirements and these requirements and these requirements. And the GFSI audits are good globally. So an audit that's done in the United States is done the exact same way over in Europe or Australia. and part of the GFSI standards. When they say get GFSI certified, they're telling you that they want you to get SQF, BRC, FSSC 22000, Global Gap. There's like 11 standards that are benchmarked and accepted globally. I'm going to talk specifically about the two main ones that are used here in the US. It's SQF, which is one of the GFSI standards, and that stands for Safe Quality Food. Their home office is in Washington, D.C., and it's a GFSI benchmark standard. So again, the SQF audit is conducted in the United States the exact same way that it's conducted in China, and it's located within the United States. The next acronym is BRC, and that stands for the British Retail Consortium, also a GFSI benchmark standard. This standard is over in Europe, and it handles, there's a lot of retailers that like BRC because it was originally designed for that, but they do allow for processing, packaging, distribution, and all the other different types. They just have different standards for that. Okay, so another acronym that's going to fall in with the FDA and FSMA is PCQI, and that means Preventive Control Qualified Individual. The FDA has stated that every facility will have a PCQI trained individual working for them that is monitoring the effectiveness of their program. The Preventive Control Qualified Individual must either attend an accredited course by the FSPCA, which is the next acronym we're going to talk about, or alternatively have HACCP training and industry experience. With the FDA wording it that way, they've left that open to interpretation. So what one auditor may feel like you have industry experience, the next one may not. So the surefire way to meet that requirement for the FDA is to attend a PCQI course that is authorized by the FSPCA, which stands for Food Safety Preventive Control Alliance, and they are located out of a university in Illinois. They have created coursework that the FDA approved, and so PCQI, FSPCA, FDA, FSMA, those are all regulatory acronyms that are used in the food safety world. Okay, let's talk about the foundation of food safety. As I stated during the acronym page, there are different levels of compliance, and everybody has to start at the same place. The foundation for all food safety audits is HACCP. So whether you are going GMP level of compliance, global level of compliance, trying to meet U.S. regulatory compliance with the FDA, HACCP is the foundation. HACCP is the term used in the food safety industry, although when you're dealing with the FDA, they call it a food safety plan, which is the next bullet down. So in the food world, in the food auditing world, we call it HACCP, and the FDA calls it food safety plan, but they are almost identical with the exception of preventive controls and monitoring. So if you have a HACCP program in place, or once you get a HACCP program in place, then you simply need to add preventive controls and monitoring as opposed to the critical control points that the HACCP requires. And then you'll not only comply with third-party GMP audits, but you'll also comply with FDA and US regulatory. Okay, foundation of food safety continued. A GMP audit is a third-party audit done by an independent organization that will meet US regulatory compliance. So in other words, out of the 20 auditing companies or certification bodies within the United States, I would say probably 90% of them offer GMP level audits. A lot of your customers will allow you to get a GMP audit your first year before they request that you go to one of the global level audits. So when we say a GMP audit, whether you manufacture, package, or distribute, you're still operating under good manufacturing practices, and the auditing companies align those GMP practices with FDA regulations and the Federal Code of Regulations for food safety. Now, to support a HACCP plan, there are SOPs and forms that are part of it, and they're the supporting documentation to prove that your HACCP or food safety plans are effective. And those forms might include things on master cleaning schedules, pest control logs, your glass and brittle plastics policy. So those are all SOP and forms that support how you're keeping your product safe while it's in your facility. A GFSI or global audit is conducted by an accredited auditing body, like a certification body. And when you're going through to get any kind of audit done, you can always go to the standard like the SQF or BRC and find out which certification bodies have been accredited to conduct the audit. We go through an auditing process to be an accredited certification body. Just like we come in and audit you, they come in and audit us to make sure that we're following processes and remaining impartial to our customers. So GMP level audit has HACCP, meets U.S. regulatory compliance. Your SOPs and forms and the examples that I gave you are your supporting documentation, and then the global audits done by an accredited certification body. Okay, during a third-party GMP audit, and these are going to vary from auditing company to auditing company, but they're going to look at, as I stated, your food safety systems, pest control, how you operate your business, maintenance of the building and whether you're logging that, and taking care of the building and fixing any oil spills or water leakage or stuff like that. The cleaning programs that you've established so that there's no cross-contamination. Allergens, that's a big one. And under the global levels, allergens are now going to be mandatory for everybody, that you've got to have an allergen program. You see weekly, almost weekly, that there's stuff being recalled by the FDA because of undeclared allergens. And let's face it, without an allergen program, it's really easy to kill somebody that's highly sensitive to one of the allergens that are undeclared. We're going to look and make sure that you've got a food defense program. Now, again, keep in mind, these are GMP level audits. These are basic audits that usually you can have done for a year. But a good piece of information that I want to give you, if you do not have a food defense program in place, you can go to fda.gov, and they've got a food defense builder template that they can use. And they don't guarantee it, obviously, that it's going to work for every organization, but it's a template. They give it to you free, and it's basically fill in the blank. So if you need a food defense program, which is something that a third-party auditing company is going to look for, you can go to the fda.gov website and use their food defense plan builder. We're going to look at your HACCP program. Again, that's the foundation. And then what ASI has done, and I'm sure that most of the other certification bodies have done, is they've added a section on FSMA compliance. So what our technical staff did and what a third-party audit is going to do, even though it's not an FDA audit and everybody that's registered is subject to that FDA inspection under the FSMA rule, we have added some requirements that, along with everything else in our audit report, it will help you prepare for that FDA visit. Again, third-party auditing companies are separate from the FDA. The FDA says you're going to have these set of rules in place. So what we've done is we added a section to our audit report to basically educate you and get you ready for the compliance issues that the FDA is going to come in and evaluate. Okay, let me talk a little bit about an FDA inspection. The FDA inspections are not third-party audits. These are done independently. Everybody's required to register with the FDA, all food companies in the United States. I believe it's every 2 years. Now, the FDA inspections fall in line with FSMA, which is the Food Safety Modernization Act. It's regulated by the government, and they're done to protect public health. So the FDA was established, however many years ago, and it was all about protecting the public health, but specifically with importing and exporting product from other countries. It will not satisfy a customer requirement if they've told you to get a third-party audit. An FDA auditor can walk in there at any given time and do the inspection, and a third-party audit 90% of the time is going to be scheduled in advance unless you opt to have it unannounced. And during an FDA audit, the dreaded Form 483 is used by the FDA to report deficiencies. And depending on what that deficiency is or how many times it's happened, they do publish those 483 reports on the FDA website for everybody to see. So the FDA inspection is independent of any other type of food safety type audit. It's regulatory coming in to check to make sure that their requirements are being followed and that you're operating under good manufacturing practices that they've established. Okay, let's talk about GFSI, the standard of SQF. The global SQF audit is a system designed to manage risk in your process. As I stated earlier, SQF stands for Safe Quality Food. It is a HACCP-based program, so again, it's the foundation of SQF. The SQF standard is a process and product certification, and it is GFSI recognized at level 2 or 3. Currently, SQF has 3 levels. They have level 1, which is the food safety fundamentals, and that's just basic, maybe sanitation, you're missing your HACCP. The cost of a level 1 SQF audit is the same as level 2, but it's not GFSI benchmark. So in all of my years of dealing with the global audits, I've had 2 customers go level 1. So that's basic, maybe a startup company that's going to have a big account. And I know a lot of companies that are listening to this out in Utah are smaller companies. If you're, opening your doors tomorrow and they want you to get SQF certified, you can go through level 1 to satisfy that particular customer, but you would actually have to go to level 2 the following year. It's for startup companies, and it's not something that most people are going to recommend that you do. The modules within the SQF code are determined by the product and scope. So there are, I believe, 17 modules in the SQF code. Module 2 applies to all certified facilities, and then you'll have a corresponding module based on what your product is. So in other words, if you process beverages, your modules are going to be 2 and 11 because your food sector category 16. So once you figure out where you're at in that, and I know that there are Utah companies going through the SQF process, you can narrow down what you need to look at and what modules actually apply to you. Otherwise, you'll be doing a lot of redundant work and stuff that's not necessary for you. So you determine what your product is, what your food sector category is, and then what your corresponding modules are. But module 2 applies to everybody. The SQF code covers the entire supply chain from farm to fork. It's owned by the Food Marketing Institute out in Washington, D.C. The code certifies the supplier's food safety management system and makes sure that it complies with international and domestic food safety regulations. And SQF has also bridged the FSMA compliance, and it can be added to your SQF audit. A lot of the companies in Utah that are either in the process of getting SQF certified or are already certified can talk to their certification body about having a half day added to have the FSMA requirements aligned with your SQF system so that you're in compliance both with SQF and FDA. And it does include the entire supply chain. As I stated, Module 2 is mandatory, and then Module 3 through 15 are food sector specific. Module 16 is a multi-site program, and I can tell you that I've not ever had a multi-site program that's truly a multi-site. That's where they consider a building that, say, distributes product, receives potatoes in from Utah, Washington, Oregon, and different places, but they oversee all of those other sites. So I would not anticipate that most of the client base in Utah would have a multi-site program in place. When you're going through the SQF certification process, there are 3 levels to choose from. Again, level 1 is for brand new people or low risk products, and it's truly the food safety fundamentals. It is not GFSI recognized, as I had already stated. Level 2 is certified HACCP food safety plan in place, and it is benchmarked. And then 3 is everything that's in level 2 along with the quality component. When a customer of yours tells you they want you to get GFSI certified, they're looking for level 2 unless they specifically say level 3, because the food safety is what the majority of your customers are looking for, not the quality aspect of it as well. Okay, now I'm going to go through a couple of frequently asked questions, and then after I go through these and give you the answer, Maureen will read any questions that came in and we will answer those as well. So frequently asked questions: does it help if my company already has a HACCP program in place and do a yearly GMP audit? Absolutely. You need to have a HACCP program in place. Again, that's the foundation for GMP. It's the foundation as a food safety plan for the FDA, and it's the foundation for the GFSI audits as well. And then many people ask, can I have a mock audit done? In the GMP world, you absolutely can. That's where an expert or auditor comes in. They do a dry run before an actual scored run, and that is available by most certification / auditing companies. And then in the SQF world, I get asked, what's the difference between an SQF pre-assessment and an SQF gap analysis? And the answer is they're similar and they're different. An SQF pre-assessment is done by your actual SQF auditor. He comes in and goes through the requirements and tells you this complies, this doesn't, this complies, it doesn't. Where an SQF gap analysis is not the auditor that comes in, but an SQF expert, and he says this complies, this doesn't, but if it doesn't comply, he gives you the corrective action so he can streamline the process for your organization. How do I know what my food sector category and modules apply? Well, you've got to get out the code, and at the very beginning of it, you say that you manufacture chocolate candy bars. You look through all of the list of food sector categories and you find what that goes in, which that would be confectionery manufacturing. And you would look at module 17 or food sector category 17, and right next to your food sector category, the code will list which modules apply to you. Okay, and the last frequently asked question is, how much will the GMP audit and SQF certification cost? For a GMP audit for a facility that's less than 150,000 square foot will cost $1,300 plus travel expenses. And the SQF audit, your initial year, will cost somewhere around $6,000, and then it'll drop down to maintenance mode. Through the University of Utah, they have the MEP, which is the one hosting this webinar today, can provide further information regarding costs and services.
Okay, thanks so much, Kim. We did have one question come in, and it says, how much time will it take for GMP and SQF certification? So if you have any ballpark numbers.
Okay, so how much time? So once a HACCP program is established and is in place, for a GMP level audit, you would be audit ready in 45 days if you process or package or distribute on a daily basis. So what a GMP auditor is going to look for is consistency, that you know what records have to be filled out, what SOPs and forms that support your HACCP program need to be filled out. And obviously, if you manufacture, package, or distribute every day, you're going to build up records quicker than if you only manufacture, package, or distribute, say, once a week. So for a GMP audit, if you operate 5 days a week and you're manufacturing, you could be ready for a GMP audit in 45 days. With SQF, it's a little bit different. They're going to take that HACCP program and put additional requirements on top of what the expectations are for a GMP level audit. So in order to go through an SQF, your first year an SQF audit is done on a two-step basis. The first step is to verify that you've got all of the criteria for the SQF audit, like 2.1.1, 2.1.2, and then during the actual facility audit, which is the second step of an SQF audit, that's the scored audit, and that's where they're going to be looking for supporting documentation. Again, based on if you process or package or manufacture 5 or 7 days a week, maybe multiple shifts, you can be audit ready in 60 to 75 days.
Okay, thanks, Kim. Do we have anyone else with questions? If so, please feel free to type them in the chat box. We'll be here for a few more minutes if you do. And if you have any other questions or follow-up questions later that you think of, please email us at info@mep.utah.edu, and we will get you in touch with Kim so she can answer any additional questions you have. So if there's not any more questions, we'll go ahead and sign off. Thanks again, Kim, for taking time out of your busy day to talk with us about food safety compliance. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Maureen.
All right.